Welcome to Your Fantastic Mind. I'm Jay Watson. This is a show where we explore the mysteries and the science of the amazing human brain. The epidemic of obesity in America is worse than ever. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports almost 40% of adults are obese, the highest rates ever recorded in the United States. No surprise, diet products and plans are a $70 billion industry, with 45 million Americans going on diets every year. Some experts say fewer than 5% keep that weight off. But what if you could quell that hunger signal, not be hungry anymore, long enough to lose the weight for good? Here is what happened when a group of people had their hunger nerve frozen.
Hey, Jaden.
Melissa Donovan takes care of brand new babies in a job that never stops.
Oh, you're sweet, baby.
A single mother, Donovan has been dieting on and off since the 3rd grade.
I definitely would turn to food. Like, I like celebrating with food, and when I'm bored, I eat food. And at the nurse's station, people bring us food to show us love, and we eat their food.
If there's a diet, odds are she's done it.
Usually my problem was I could lose it by doing like a cleanse or a Whole30 or a sugar detox, and then I would gain it right back. I can gain 10, lose 20, gain 25 easily. I was kind of giving into the circumstance that I was just going to be that plus size girl, and I didn't want to be, but I was like, all of a sudden I'm just, Trey's mommy who's just overweight, and I didn't want to be that person, but I was like, well, I guess it's just inevitable.
What Donovan didn't know was that on the other side of the Emory Johns Creek Hospital was a doctor who would change her life.
In my day job, I was using interventional radiology to freeze nerves for the treatment of pain.
Interventional radiologist Dr. David Prologo was helping patients end debilitating nerve pain with cryoablation, a several decades old process in which hollow needles cooled by thermally conductive fluids are placed close to a nerve.
It's freezing of the nerve. We know from treating pain that if we get a probe close to the nerve and we drop the temperature, the nerve stops sending whatever signals it was sending, in most cases pain.
So Prologo, who is also board certified in obesity medicine, had an idea.
One of the things that causes people to quit their diets is hunger. And we know that that hunger signal is transmitted through a nerve. And so the interventional radiology skill set allows me to get to that nerve safely through the skin with image guidance.
Dr. Prologo is talking about the vagus nerve, which runs from the brain to the belly. And among its many duties is alerting the brain to when the stomach is full and empty.
The vagus nerve projects these hunger signals to the brainstem. The brainstem then processes them and sends them to the higher centers in your brain that process pleasure. For survival purposes, when our stomach is empty, our vagus nerve sends a signal to our brain to seek food so that we don't die.
Prologo says those hunger signals can be relentless on calorie-restricting diets, especially for overweight people.
A restricted calorie diet for a person who is lean is easier to tolerate than a restricted calorie diet for a person who's overweight. Making the change is hard. Maintenance is not. If we can get the people past the point where it's hard to restrict calories, then the hunger signal is much easier to deal with. There's paper after paper after paper, very famous papers written in the Journal of American Medical Association showing how no matter what diet a person is on, their success or failure depends on nutrition, meaning that we can compare the Atkins diet to Ornish, to the South Beach diet, to a keto diet, and the people who are going to succeed aren't in one of those buckets. The people who are going to succeed are the people who stay on the diet.
In Dr. Prologo's case, his motivation to help people lose weight comes from a deeply personal place.
I'll be honest, I'll tell a story that I don't think I've told to anyone else, and it's a true story. I watched my mom, who was overweight for the majority of my life. I'm sure she wouldn't be embarrassed that I'm sharing that. And I knew her to be an extremely strong and persistent person with a will of steel, right? But she could not stay on a diet. I got to see it from the inside, from a person that I knew was strong. And so this message that people cannot make the transformation from overweight to lean because they're weak, could not possibly be right if we're talking about my mom. I see people like my mom every day now, and when they tell the story of how difficult it is for them, how impossible it is for them to stay on a diet, I want them to know, I believe you. I believe you.
Dr. Prologo took evidence from previous studies of cryoablation and presented them to the FDA for a new application, a new use for the procedure, to freeze part of the vagus nerve. Prologo calls it the catch procedure, cryoablation to curb hunger. The FDA approved a pilot study. The first participant to sign up, Melissa Donovan.
I thought I was there for like 3 minutes. I was there for like 30.
We bring them into the CT suite, and we give them some sedation, lay them on their belly. We take a small probe, which is about the size of a pen tip, and we advance that through their back to this region where the esophagus meets the stomach. That's where the vagus nerve lives. We freeze for 2 minutes, and we let it thaw for a little bit, and then we take that out. We put a Band-Aid over the site, and we recover them from the sedation and send them on their way.
Dr. Prologo says the small section of the vagus nerve that is frozen eventually regenerates.
It regenerates at about a rate of 1 millimeter per day, which is really slow. So the distance of the vagus nerve would take about a year to regenerate.
Woke up, went home, and didn't feel anything. Like never had pain, never had any kind of discomfort. I called Dr. Prologo the next day and I was like, was this a placebo effect? Did you just pretend like you were gonna go in and freeze something and you didn't really do anything? And he was like, why, what's the deal? And I was like, I just forgot to eat. I was like, I'm obsessed with food.
Just like that, Donovan got off the seesaw she's been on for most of her life.
I didn't feel hungry. And really it was like, I don't need to eat, but I should eat, right? I should stop to eat right now. I didn't think it was real. I thought maybe I'd made it up in my head. I would order the same amount of food that I was used to ordering, so I could eat a whole burger and I could eat a whole side of fries, or I could eat 3 sushi rolls. It won't let you. Like, your body will tell you to stop eating, that you're really full.
Donovan was one of 20 people in the pilot study. Participants were not given any guidance on diet, calorie restriction, exercise, or lifestyle changes.
What we did measure was impact on hunger. So we took all of the patients who underwent the procedure, and at each of the follow-up points, 7 days after the procedure, 45 days after the procedure, 90 and 180, we gave them a questionnaire asking them to compare their hunger level to pre-procedure rates. And more than 95% of the patients are reporting decreased hunger. So what we can do with that decreased hunger is what's exciting about this.
6 months post-procedure, 95% of participants felt their appetite was less than before. 50% had cut 460 calories a day from their diet. 47% were eating 500 fewer calories a day. And 24% had cut a whopping 1,000 calories a day from their diet. 18 out of 20 people did lose weight, anywhere from 3 to 30 pounds. And something else? This group began moving, with 84% of patients reporting increases in physical activity. Dr. Prologo says intervening in a physical way can dramatically impact a mentally and physiologically difficult journey.
We would never have someone come into us with heart disease who says, I've smoked for X number of years and I ate steaks every day, and now I've got heart disease. We would never say to them, well, you better get your head together and overcome this heart disease. Never. We think of a way to intervene onto their body and reverse their heart disease and treat them and help them. Yet when an obese person comes in, we tell them to just kind of gut it out.
Prologo believes that freezing the vagus nerve, quieting that hunger signal for about a year, gives people time to change their bodies and their lives.
We just need it to be out of the way long enough so that these folks can get over here, and eating healthy and exercising and living well is fun. So when the nerve regenerates, they're already over here. They don't need to make a change anymore. It's making the change that's hard. We want to help people make the change.
It's been a year for Melissa Donovan.
I've lost somewhere a little more than 30 pounds, probably 3 sizes down, and haven't gained any of it back.
She says she notices hunger signals now that her vagus nerve is regenerated, but they're no longer debilitating. That frozen year freed her from her yo-yo diets. She has a new lifestyle, a new life.
All done. You're perfect. You're perfect. We'll go back to mommy.
This procedure is not available to the public yet, but Dr. Prologo says it will be in the near future. Leonardo da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper, reminds us of that saying, "A picture is worth 1,000 words." Well, that's especially true when it comes to remembering something. Researchers at the University of Waterloo in Canada say that drawing is a powerful influence on our memory and can be especially useful for older adults and even those with dementia.
Researchers had participants draw quick pictures, 4-second drawings, of words in a list, such as truck and pear. Well, the people who drew pictures remembered them better than when they wrote the word out multiple times. Creating the drawings was also more effective than imagining the items or viewing pictures of the words.
Researchers also found that drawing helps people remember even more complex words. People who were given a minute to draw an image of a spore were more likely to remember it than people who were asked to write out the definition. Now, younger people were better than older people at remembering the words that they wrote out, but there was no difference between the two groups as far as the words they had drawn.
Researchers asked 13 people diagnosed with dementia to either draw or write 60 words that were read aloud. The results showed a massive memory benefit for words that had been drawn rather than written.
Now, in some cases, the patient's drawings look like scribbles, but it doesn't matter because drawing ability has nothing to do with memory performance. Even those of us who can only draw stick figures can get memory benefits, and here's why.
Retaining new information typically declines as we age because of deterioration of critical brain structures involved in memory, such as the hippocampus and frontal lobes. However, visual spatial processing regions of the brain involved in representing images and pictures remain mostly intact in normal aging and in dementia. Drawing makes use of brain regions that are still preserved and could help people experiencing memory impairment.
These findings will likely lead to new interventions and therapies to help dementia patients and all of us hold on to valuable memories. So many of us spend a lot of our lives rushing from one obligation to the next, and oftentimes sleep isn't a top priority. But a new study says that when it comes to children and sleep, it can impact whether or not they're overweight in adolescence.
In the study, published in the journal Sleep, researchers at Penn State University analyzed data for over 2,000 children in 20 cities from the Fragile Families and Child Well-Being Study. Researchers analyzed the children's sleep routines and found that only a third of the children between 5 and 9 years old, many from low-income or minority families, consistently stuck to age-appropriate bedtimes and sleep routines. Children who had no bedtime routine by 9 years old slept less and had a higher body mass index by the age of 15. Body mass index, or BMI, is an estimate of body fat based on height and weight. And their poor sleep habits continued into adolescence, with them getting less sleep than is recommended for their developing brains. Among the third of children who had optimal bedtimes and sleep routines between 5 and 9, well, their body mass index was lower at 15 years old, and their good sleep habits continued. A study from Penn State last year showed that giving kids screen time before bed led to about an hour less sleep and a higher BMI.
The study shows it's time to slow down and prioritize sleep. The habits we put in place for our children in childhood follow them when they grow up. Most of us lead busy lives, so busy we can't recall everything we do at our jobs in a single day. But one thing we don't forget is when someone is rude to us, or snarky, which is sharply critical, cutting, snide. Research is showing that rudeness in the workplace impacts our brains in profound ways.
At the North DeKalb Senior Center,
your brain loves novelty. And the more you do things differently, the happier your brain will be, like, woo, something new.
Karen Zarin is leading a class called Ageless Grace.
This class is about fun, but it's also tapping into your cognitive development, your balance, agility.
Upper body strength.
At 70 years old,
We're also stimulating our internal organs.
Zarin seems pretty ageless herself.
Flash, I was taking a bath.
Zarin, who says she works to live a mindful life,
Give it all you got.
was drawn to sign up for a study about personality and decision. Whatever she expected, it was not this.
Hey, you were supposed to message me 20 minutes ago. I don't have time to waste unnecessarily. Please let me finish. Don't interrupt me. See if you can salvage this session, okay?
I was absolutely appalled that somebody would be so rude, and I said under my breath to Rich, that's your boss?
Zarin would come to learn she was part of a study examining the impacts of incivility or rudeness in the workplace.
So Karen came in as one of our very first research participants.
University of Florida Doctor of Business student Dr. Richard Kirsten, along with researchers at the University of Maryland and Emory University, were digging deeper into an area of great interest for researchers over the past few decades.
Don't interrupt me, and I'll get done as much as I can.
How workplace rudeness impacts us. Workplace incivility or rudeness is defined as low-intensity deviant behavior with ambiguous intent to harm in violation of workplace norms. It is not hostility, abuse, or violence. It's subtle.
I'm not sure what you were trying to do in that report, but it didn't work.
And most of us have experienced it at one time or another.
So you thought it was a good idea to do it that way?
So we found that rudeness causes people to be less productive, they're less effective at problem solving, people who are exposed to rudeness are less creative, they're less helpful. And just turn left into this room.
Kirsten and his team recruited volunteers via social media. Their goal was to recruit everyday people, not to study students or other common research participants.
It just took a while.
Okay, whatever. Just give me this.
More than 60 people ranging from their 20s to their 70s signed up. When they arrived, all received instructions from a neuropsychologist named Dr. Dave Cameron through what they thought was a FaceTime call. Half received instructions from a neutral Dr. Dave.
A lot of people have trouble with this. If you do make a mistake, just keep going and do the best you can.
Half got rude Dr. Dave.
A lot of people have trouble with this. But if you make another mistake, just keep going. Do the best you can, okay?
Zarin was in the rude group. He tells her she forgot to bring paperwork that had been emailed to her, which is not true.
Because you didn't follow the instructions in the email and complete the paperwork ahead of time, I don't have a whole lot of time. I know you're probably just here for the gift card, but I'm a very
You can see Zarin is not quite sure what's happening at first. She doubts herself and imagines that maybe she did overlook an email she was supposed to bring in.
Don't interrupt me, and I'll get done as much as I can. My assistant can always answer any questions you might have afterwards.
Great.
So this study has two
Zarin
parts.
is stunned.
The first,
I was shocked that I was going to have to be a part of something that was being led by someone like that.
So you said...
I've never been talked to that way by anyone in my entire life.
She apologizes for missing the email for the paperwork.
Honestly, I never saw anything to fill out, and I'm sorry if I missed it.
We will...
And then,
We'll just go for it.
after all of that, she takes 90 minutes of various assessments, usually given to people with mild cognitive impairment, a condition that's often a precursor to Alzheimer's disease. Sensors monitor her pulse and heart rate. The results of the study show how dramatically rudeness affects us.
Turns out that rudeness doesn't just impact our productivity at work or our willingness to help other people or our problem-solving skills. It turns out that rudeness can actually impact our ability to attend to multiple things at the same time. And it also turns out that rudeness causes us to be more impulsive.
Out of all the assessments they completed, participants exposed to rudeness were consistently slower and less accurate on the Erickson-Flanker task, a cognitive test designed to evaluate attention. They also engaged in riskier behavior using the balloon analog risk task that measures impulsivity in decision-making.
For example, if you're making cost-benefit decisions at work, that's a big deal. If you're evaluating treatment options for a patient, that's a big deal.
Kirsten and his collaborators hypothesized that people act more impulsively because they're distracted. Zarin admits she was.
You're ruminating about it and thinking about it and wondering, could I have done it differently? And why was that person so rude to me? Did I set them off? Was it me?
In the back of our mind, in the RAM of our neurological computer, we've got some small program running in the background that is trying to interpret what was that, why did that happen, and what does that mean?
In Zarin's case, she was doing assessments for the study, but in real life, rudeness has a cost.
Dispensing a prescription is not a complex activity, but if incivility impacts our ability to attend to the task of dispensing prescription, then maybe we dispense 25 milligrams instead of 0.25 milligrams. If incivility impacts attention, then there's potential for an air traffic controller to not be able to attend to all the different variables that she or he has to worry about.
Rudeness can have devastating impacts, as evidenced by a study in the journal Pediatrics, where medical teams participated in a training simulation with a preterm infant.
If you have an observer who just makes offhand comments that are this low-intensity behavior, they found that a disproportionate amount of the time, the NICU teams failed to work together as a team. They found that the NICU teams broke down in terms of their teamwork. They stopped sharing information. And ultimately, in these diagnostic exercises, they often failed to identify a very serious medical condition that would lead to the death of an infant in a real-world scenario.
Studies on rudeness in the workplace are particularly common in business schools because rudeness is a big cause of employee turnover and reduced effort at work. And it's costly. One study found that a single rude incident cost a system $25,832 per year in reduced effort, time wasted worrying, avoidance of a rude coworker, HR interactions, and eventually, employee turnover.
So for example, if you're walking into your office and the person at the front desk is really rude to you, and then you go interact with clients on a different floor, we know that the impact of that preliminary exposure to rudeness, it follows you.
People who witness rudeness between other people suffer the same impacts. Rude emails do the same. And yes, all the incivility we see on social media these days is having the same effect as well. Dr. Kirsten and Karen Zarin met after the study and watched the video together.
I was shocked. Plus, I was feeling like you were maybe going to be disappointed in I was wasting your time too, and I was feeling bad about that.
Sure. Were you confused at all?
No, I just thought you worked for a horrible person.
Zarin laughs, knowing it wasn't real. But in the workplace, rudeness is a reality for most of us.
So one of our bigger concerns is that rudeness is increasing.
Okay.
One was an R1 and one was...
Kirsten and his team have landed more funding from the University of Florida to keep studying rudeness. It may be an unavoidable part of working with other people, but results of rudeness are real and far-reaching.
I'll call you in a couple of hours when we're both done. See if you can salvage this session, okay?
So the next time you're tempted to respond to that rude email in kind, maybe think again. That's going to do it for us this week. See you next time on Your Fantastic Mind.